Across the vast lands of India, where rivers carve valleys and forests whisper with ancient winds, live tribes whose stories predate empires and kings. Their footprints linger in mountains, deserts, and dense jungles, etched into the very soil of the subcontinent. Each community carries traditions as old as the land itself, songs, rituals, and crafts woven into the rhythms of survival. To witness them is to glimpse a living archive of human resilience, a mosaic of identities shaped by earth and sky. This is not just history, but a journey into timeless worlds hidden within India's beating heart. High in the mist-wrapped hills of Meghalaya, where clouds drift low and rivers carve deep gorges, the Khasi people have built their world among rain-soaked forests and endless green. Their land is known as one of the wettest places on Earth, where torrents shape valleys and waterfalls roar with unbroken force. Here, amid a kingdom of rain, the Khasi forged a bond with nature so enduring that their homes, paths, and bridges are not merely built, but grown from the living roots of trees. Centuries ago, when stone and timber would not withstand the relentless monsoon, the Khasi turned to the fig tree. Its roots, trained patiently across streams and ravines, became bridges stronger than iron, bridges that would outlast generations. Each living bridge stands as a testament to time, born of patience and nurtured by countless hands. Beneath the canopy, these woven roots carry both weight and memory, binding community to community, mountain to mountain. Yet life in this rain-laden world has never been simple. The monsoon, which gives abundance, also brings isolation, swelling rivers into barriers and cutting villages away from one another. For the Khasi, survival meant adaptation. They carved terraces into the hills to hold soil against the rushing waters, and their sacred groves became sanctuaries where the balance between people and earth was fiercely guarded. Every stone path and every cultivated slope tells of struggle against the elements, of a people who stood resilient where the land itself seemed to resist them. And so, within the Emerald Hills, the Khasi story endures, not as a tale of conquest, but of coexistence. The living bridges stretch like veins across the valleys, carrying the weight of generations, carrying the proof that even in the harshest rains, human hands and the earth can weave permanence together. This is the legacy of the Khasi, guardians of the clouds and builders of living paths. Deep within the rolling highlands of Meghalaya, where dense forests breathe with mist and rivers cut through rugged valleys, the Garo people carved out their world. Their homeland, cloaked in thick jungles and shifting clouds, has long been a place of mystery and endurance. Here, the earth is fertile, yet untamed, alive with elephants, tigers, and the hum of unseen life. For centuries, the Garo moved with the rhythm of the hills, their villages rising from bamboo and thatch, their lives tied to the shifting fields and the sacred groves that guarded the spirit of the land. Long ago, when kingdoms rose across the plains, the Garo remained high in their hills, resisting conquest with courage and skill. Their terrain became both shield and challenge. Steep ridges and dense forests slowed intruders, while the people themselves fought fiercely to preserve their freedom. The drum and horn would echo through the valleys as the Garo stood their ground, their unity as strong as the mountains that surrounded them. Yet survival in these hills was never only about war. The relentless monsoon could wash away fields, and scarcity often tested their strength. Through shifting cultivation and careful guardianship of forests, they sustained themselves, renewing their bond with soil and sky. In this struggle, their traditions became lifelines. Sacred rituals called upon ancestral spirits, guiding them through storms and uncertainty. The great Nokma, guardian of each clan, led with wisdom, rooted not in wealth or power, but in the ability to keep harmony between people and the unseen world. Every festival, every song that echoed beneath the forest canopy was not just celebration, but survival. A reminder that resilience was woven into every breath of their hills. Today, their legacy endures in the highlands, where bamboo houses perch against mountain slopes and ancient drumbeats still reverberate through the night air. The Garo story is not one of surrender, but of balance, a people shaped by rain, jungle, and stone, who stood steadfast against the forces of nature and history alike. In the heart of Meghalaya, the Garo remain keepers of the hills, their spirit rooted as deeply as the forests that cradle their world. High in the far northeastern mountains of India, where emerald ridges fold into mist and rivers carve deep valleys, the Naga people have long called the highlands their home. Their villages, perched upon steep slopes, overlook a land both beautiful and unforgiving. Dense forests shelter them, yet isolation from the wider world shaped a life of self-reliance, where every harvest, every hunt, and every alliance carried the weight of survival. The hills themselves became both cradle and fortress, guarding communities that flourished in defiance of the rugged terrain. Centuries ago, the Naga lived in scattered clans, each with its own traditions, symbols, and proud heritage. In a land where kingdoms and empires rarely held sway, their autonomy became their strength. The mountains gave safety, but also fueled rivalries. Clans built strong defenses, surrounding their villages with wooden stockades, and warriors stood ready to protect their people from raids. In these struggles, courage was not just admired, it was a necessity. The warrior spirit, sharpened by hardship, became etched into their identity, binding communities together through bravery and honor. Yet the Naga story is not only one of conflict. Their connection to the land runs deeper than defense. Fields carved into the hillsides yielded grain, while forests provided sustenance and medicine. Festivals marked the cycle of seasons, where songs, dances, and vivid ornaments carried history through performance, weaving memory into rhythm and color. Each tradition was a declaration of survival, of continuity in the face of challenge. Over time, storms of history pressed upon their mountains. Traders, travelers, and rulers from distant plains crossed into their lands, yet the Naga spirit of independence remained unbroken. Their hills, steeped in cloud and silence, held fast to an ancient rhythm that no power could erase. In the highlands, where clouds drift like veils across the peaks, the Naga endure. Their legacy is one of resilience, a people bound to the mountains, their story echoing through drums, dances, and the steadfast courage of those who stood rooted in their ancestral soil. In the heart of Arunachal Pradesh, where the Himalayas descend into lush valleys and rivers wind through emerald fields, the Apatani people built their home in the cradle of the Zero Valley. Encircled by pine-covered hills and nourished by crystal streams, their land became a sanctuary of abundance and challenge. The valley's fertile floor, though small and confined, demanded ingenuity, and it was here that the Apatani shaped one of the most remarkable farming traditions in the eastern Himalayas. Centuries ago, when survival in the mountains depended on adaptation, the Apatani turned the marshy basin of Ziro into a masterpiece of human and natural harmony. Without beasts of burden, without the wheel, they carved terraced wetlands that shimmered in layers of green and gold. Ingenious irrigation channels carried water from mountain streams, weaving life across every plot. And in these paddies, rice grew not alone, but side by side with fish, a delicate balance that sustained both field and family. Each harvest became not only food, but testimony to patience, precision, and respect for the land. Yet the valley was no easy refuge. Isolated by mountains and forests, the Apatani had to guard what they created. For generations, they fortified their villages with bamboo palisades, defending themselves from raiders who sought to break their peace. In those times of conflict, courage stood hand in hand with labor, and the spirit of community was their greatest weapon. Their rituals, chants, and dances called upon ancestral guardians, binding the people together under the watch of the unseen world. Even as the rains swept the valley and the mists concealed the hills, the Apatani endured, their traditions anchoring them through uncertainty. The sacred groves, untouched by the axe, and the festivals echoing with songs kept the valley alive not only with crops, but with spirit. Today, the terraces of Zero still gleam beneath the sun, their geometry a living testament to centuries of resilience. The story of the Apatani is written in water and soil, in bamboo and song, in the enduring bond between people and the valley that cradled them. In this harmony of mountain and man, their legacy flows unbroken, like the streams that nourish their timeless land. Across the rugged hills and forests of western and central India, where thorn trees scatter across dry ridges and rivers wind through rocky valleys, the Bhil people have carried their story for centuries. Their homeland stretches across Rajasthan, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra, a vast and varied landscape of arid plains and wooded highlands. In these wild terrains, the Bhil learned to live with resilience, shaping a culture deeply bound to the rhythms of the earth and the challenges of survival. Long ago, when empires rose and kingdoms flourished across the plains, the Bhil stood apart in their forests. Skilled as archers, hunters, and warriors, they became both feared and respected, their bows carried as symbols of strength. Their knowledge of the land gave them mastery where outsiders faltered, and their independence was guarded fiercely. Yet this independence often drew conflict, as rulers and invaders sought to claim their forests and bend them to command. The Bhil resisted, retreating deeper into the hills, striking back with skill and determination. Their forests became fortresses, and their way of life endured in defiance of power. But survival in these lands demanded more than resistance. The dry seasons tested their strength, when rivers shrank and fields cracked beneath the sun. Through shifting cultivation and careful gathering, the Bhil kept their families alive. Sacred groves and ancestral rituals bound them to the unseen guardians of the land, for in their world, every tree, rock, and river carried spirit. Festivals lit the forests with song and dance, turning hardship into celebration, weaving identity into color and rhythm. Over centuries, the Bhil became woven into the fabric of India's history, sometimes standing as warriors for kings, sometimes as rebels against them. Yet at their heart, they remained true to their forests, their hills, and their ancestral ways. Today, the Bhil story endures like the rugged land itself, strong, unyielding, and timeless. From the bough that symbolizes their heritage to the forests that cradle their lives, the Bhil remain guardians of a legacy carved in stone and soil. a people whose roots run as deep as the hills they call home. Across the rolling hills and dense forests of eastern India, where rivers wind through fertile valleys and the land glows rich with red soil, the Santhal people have long thrived. Their world stretches across Jharkhand, Bihar, Odisha, and West Bengal, a region where the rhythm of earth and sky shaped both survival and song. In this land of forests and fields, the Santhal built a life bound to nature's pulse, their traditions echoing through music, dance, and the eternal bond with the soil beneath their feet. Centuries ago, the Santhal lived as cultivators and hunters, their lives woven into the forest that gave food, shelter, and spirit. Each village rose from mud and thatch, surrounded by fields of grain, and each harvest brought not only sustenance, but celebration. Yet survival here was never effortless. Droughts scorched the land, floods consumed the valleys, and wild beasts prowled at the edges of the fields. Through all, the Santhal endured, carrying forward a culture of resilience, where every festival was a renewal of hope, and every song a shield against despair. But history pressed hard upon them. As rulers and landlords expanded their reach, the Santhal were forced into labor, their lands seized, their freedom threatened. From this struggle was born one of their most defining chapters, uprisings against oppression that shook the plains. In the mid-19th century, thousands rose in defiance, led by their own sons and daughters of the soil, standing firm against impossible odds. Though many lives were lost, the spirit of resistance became etched forever into their identity. Even in times of conflict, the Santhal soul found strength in tradition. The beating of the madal drum, the circle of dancers moving in unison, the chants that rose into the night, all carried the story of endurance, of unity forged through hardship. Their sacred groves and rituals kept the bond with ancestors alive, guiding them through uncertainty and change. Today, the Santhal legacy endures across their homelands, alive in every festival, every field, every rhythm of drum and dance. Their story is one of survival and defiance, of a people who stood unbroken against both nature and history, leaving behind a legacy as deep and unyielding as the red earth they call home. High in the remote hills of Odisha, where forests cloak the slopes and rivers carve narrow gorges, live the Bonda people, one of India's most ancient tribes. Their homeland, hidden within the rugged Bonda highlands, is a world apart, where steep terrain and dense canopy have sheltered them for centuries. In this secluded realm, life is shaped by endurance, by a bond with nature that has weathered storms, scarcity, and the march of time. For countless generations, the Bonda lived close to the forest, cultivating small patches of shifting fields carved from the slopes. Millet, pulses, and roots sustained them, while the wilds provided fruits, honey, and game. Their isolation kept them free, yet it also demanded resilience. For every harvest hung on the balance of rain, and every season tested their strength. Within their hilltop villages, bamboo houses stood as sanctuaries, and ancestral rituals tied their people to the unseen forces of the land. Conflict, too, shaped their story. For centuries, the rugged highlands protected the Bonda from outside rule. Yet this protection came at a cost. When kingdoms expanded across the plains, the Bonda stood apart, resisting domination, clinging fiercely to their independence. Scarcity and raids tested their unity, but their spirit of self-reliance kept them unbroken. Each ritual offering, each sacred song, became a shield against despair, a reminder that their strength came not from conquest, but from survival. Their traditions carry the memory of this struggle. Festivals echo with chants and dances that recall ancestors, while the forests themselves remain sacred, guarded as living temples. In this world, every harvest is a triumph, every ceremony a renewal of resilience. Even now, in the hills veiled with mist, the Bonda endure. Their legacy is written not in monuments or cities, but in the earth itself, in the crops that rise from rocky soil, in the songs that resound through the forest night, in the unbroken will of a people who chose the highlands as their eternal home. The Bonda remain, guardians of a timeless way of life, rooted deep in the wild heart of Odisha. High upon the rolling grasslands of the Nilgiri Hills, where clouds drift low over shola forests and the air carries the chill of altitude, live the Toda people, a small but enduring tribe whose story is as old as the Blue Mountains themselves. Their homeland, with its sweeping pastures and mist-wrapped valleys, became both sanctuary and challenge, a world where survival depended on harmony with the land. For centuries, the Toda shaped their lives around the herds that roamed these uplands. Buffalo were not merely animals of sustenance, but sacred companions, their milk flowing into ritual as much as daily need. In return, the Toda raised their temples and homes as tributes to this bond. Their dwellings, curved like the arc of the earth and thatched with mountain grass, rose from the hillsides as part of the landscape itself. Within these barrel-shaped sanctuaries, chants and prayers carried across the valleys, weaving faith with the rhythm of pastoral life. Yet life in the high Nilgiris was never without hardship. The climate shifted with sudden rains and biting winds, and the isolation of the plateau set the Toda apart from the plains below. Scarcity tested their endurance, while the encroaching presence of distant rulers and outsiders brought pressures upon their sacred pastures. Still, the Toda held fast, their devotion to ritual and to buffalo herding giving them strength. Every festival, every rite performed in their temple huts became a declaration of continuity against change. Their struggle was not only with nature or history, but with the fragility of their own small numbers. Yet in this fragility lay resilience. Through generations, the Toda preserved their language, their songs, their ways of worship, passing them down as treasures as enduring as the hills themselves. Even now, among the rolling grasslands, where wildflowers scatter across the slopes and streams glitter under the sun, the Toda story endures. It is written in the curved roofs of their homes, in the sacred milk offered to the divine, in the quiet strength of a people who chose devotion and simplicity as their armor. In the high Nilgiri Hills, the Toda remain, guardians of a pastoral world shaped by faith, endurance, and an unbroken bond with the land. Across the deep forests and rugged highlands of central India, where the Satpura and Vindhya ranges rise like guardians of stone, live the Gond people, one of the largest and most ancient tribes of the subcontinent. Their homeland stretches across Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and Maharashtra, a vast terrain of dense jungle, rocky ridges, and fertile valleys. Within this wilderness, the Gond forged a life inseparable from the forest, their traditions and beliefs entwined with the spirits of trees, rivers, and mountains. Centuries ago, the Gond were not only forest dwellers, but rulers of powerful kingdoms. In these lands, forts crowned the hills, and palaces rose from stone, marking the age of Gondwana. Their dynasties governed with skill, their warriors defending valleys and rivers, their rulers building cities that echoed with trade and life. Yet even as they held thrones, their hearts remained tied to the forest, where sacred groves sheltered their gods and ancestral spirits. This dual world of kingdom and wilderness defined their strength and their struggle. But history would test them. With the rise of new powers and empires, Gond kingdoms faced invasion and loss. Their forts fell, their lands were seized, and the forest once again became their refuge. The people who had ruled vast territories returned to the rhythm of soil and forest, keeping alive their identity through songs, myths, and rituals. In their art, painted across walls and carved into memory, the Gond preserved the stories of creation, of animals and spirits, of the eternal link between human and nature. The forest was not only sanctuary, but lifeline. From its bounty came grain, fruit, and wood. From its depths, the inspiration for song and worship. Festivals turned villages into circles of dance, where drums beat like thunder and voices carried the myths of ancestors. Every rhythm told of survival. Every chant reaffirmed their belonging to the earth. Today, the legacy of the Gond endures, vast as the land they once ruled and intimate as the groves where they still pray. Their story is written in stone forts crumbling on hilltops, in paintings that glow with the colors of the forest, and in the resilience of a people whose roots run as deep as the mountains they call home. The Gond remain, children of the forest and heirs of forgotten kingdoms, carrying a history as boundless as central India itself. Deep within the dense tropical forests of the Andaman Islands, where mangroves guard the coasts and emerald canopies stretch unbroken, live the Jarwa, one of the most ancient peoples on Earth. Their homeland lies across untamed islands scattered in the Bay of Bengal, where rivers spill into lagoons and rainforests rise from coral shores. For tens of thousands of years, the Jarwa have walked these jungles, their story bound to sea and soil, carried in silence through the ages. Long before ships crossed the oceans or kingdoms rose on the mainland, the Jarwa thrived in these islands. They hunted wild pigs, gathered fruits, and fished the shallow waters, their lives shaped by an unbroken bond with the forest. Every path through the jungle, every clearing by the shore, bore the memory of countless generations who had learned to live without cities, without conquest, sustained instead by the eternal rhythm of land and sea. Their isolation became both protection and challenge. Storms could batter the coasts, scarcity could shadow their days, yet the forest always gave and the sea always renewed. But the story of the Jarwa is also one of resistance. For centuries, outsiders tried to claim their islands, bringing change and intrusion. The Jarwa withdrew deeper into the forests, guarding their independence fiercely, refusing to be subdued. Their arrows became both warning and defense, a reminder that the land was theirs, and theirs alone. In this struggle, their very survival became defiance, a refusal to surrender to powers that sought to alter their way of life. Through it all, their traditions endured. Fire flickered at the heart of their camps, songs echoed beneath the canopy, and rituals bound them to ancestors who had walked the islands since time beyond memory. Their world was not written in stone or scroll, but in the forest paths, the tides of the sea, and the stories whispered by the wind. Even now, the Jarwa remain guardians of the Andamans, their presence as timeless as the islands themselves. In the shifting light of the rainforest and the roar of the ocean, their legacy continues, a people who chose endurance over surrender, and whose spirit is as unbroken as the wild lands they call home.